Good morning. Good to be with you all this morning. Thank you, Jackson, for reading that, and thank you, Michael, for leading those songs. I appreciate it. To our visitors here, if you are not in a hurry to go about your day, I ask you to just hang around a little bit so we can say hi if you haven't been greeted already. Don't let what you're about to hear deter you from coming back. I am not the guy who stands in this spot regularly. I'm just a dude filling in. I was thinking the other day, I don't know how many Sunday mornings that I've done, and we're probably about to find out. But I do hope the things that we talk about this morning are of some benefit to you, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring a lesson from God's word to you. If you would humor me for a moment, I'd like to do a little exercise. It's nothing visual like Brian bringing out a sword during a Iron Sharpens Iron series, or Sam's light invitation, or his Coke and milk illustration that he's had before. So it won't be as cool, as impactful, but it also won't be as gross as Sam drinking that Coke and milk mixture that I witnessed him do a couple weeks back. But hopefully you'll get something from it. Try to think back to your earliest memory. There may be some that they're easier for others. Some of the younger ones can think about their earliest ones than the older ones, us older ones. There may be more than one memory that comes to mind. There may be just one specific memory. But try to think back to your earliest memory. Now, fast forward to the moment we are in right now. How many changes have taken place in your life during those two time frames? The places you've lived, the relationships that you've had, some people who were there during your earliest memory who are gone for various reasons. There were people who weren't there during your earliest memories till now who are here in your life. The jobs that you've had during that time, the seasons you've walked through, the season you are in currently, the highs, the lows, the things you could do 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a year ago, that you can't do anymore. Lack of desire or ability or whatever it may be. Some of those changes you chose. You counted the cost, you weighed the risk, you decided to go down this path knowing things would change. And sometimes things change that you never saw coming. Some of those changes you didn't choose, right? You had no say, no power in those changes, but they came anyway. Some of those changes brought you joy and happiness. You could probably think of the big ones, that brought you joy and happiness. Others brought you pain and sadness. Again, some of the big ones you can probably think of. But from our earliest memories to where we are in this moment right now, this is true for every single one of us. Life and the changes that come with it has not stood still. And how good are we with change? How good do we deal with it? Some may be better than others, but by and large, change is something that we struggle with. If you're a fan of 90s country at all, you may know this line from the song, "Time Marches On." The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. And I try to apply this phrase to myself when I experience change. I try really hard to. Kids are getting older. They're doing their own thing. It's not the same that it was years ago. People move away. Relationships evolve. Sometimes they devolve. Souls are here for a moment, and the next, they're gone. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. When you look at your life, that feels pretty accurate, doesn't it? And we maybe ask the question, in the world where everything changes, is there anything that doesn't? Because everything in this world is in a constant state of change. We're going to lead a song in a moment The first line of that song, time is filled with swift transition. But while everything in the world is changing, there is one who stands completely outside of it all, unchanging, unmoved, and unwavering. Thanks be to God that he doesn't change. And you're probably already thinking there's verses that you know, because you guys are really smart, that we're going to be looking at. We're talking about this. This is nothing new, new revelation that we're going to be talking about here. So, and who would I be to disappoint you? So we're going to dive right into those verses. James 1 verse 17 says, every good gift and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no shadow or variation due to change. James reminds us that every good thing that we have comes from God, the Father of lights. He created all these lights, the sun, the moon, the stars. And even in those things he created, there is change. The sun follows a path every day. It rises and sets. That movement creates shadows. For those of you who are into planting anything, you pay attention to where the shadows hit, depending on where you want to set up your beds for your garden or flower bed. How are you going to plant those plants based on never eat soggy waffles? This helps you to know where the shadows hit. People will often build structures based on where the sun rises and then the sun sets. The moon, for you science guys, the moon and it changes throughout its cycle, those variations, those phases, it's been documented. Those phases affect the change of the tide. Occupations like commercial fishing, shellfish harvesting, harbor pilots, marine managers, you have to have an understanding of those phases of the changes of the moon. The phases of the changes of the moon can cause animal behaviors to change. Sleep patterns, light levels at night. Sometimes we even blame human behavior on the changes of the moon. For healthcare workers or educators or just parents, is it a full moon? What's going on out there? People acting crazy. But even then, the rising and setting of the sun, the moon phases that change during the year. I mean, what winter are we in this morning? Is it blackberry? Seems like we've had many of those. James reminds us there is no change, no variation when it comes to God. Do you know anybody that you are around consistently that you never know what you're going to get when you talk to them, when you interact with them, like their mood changes pretty consistently? Is that person you? Does your mood change from day to day or hour to hour? And you might be sitting there saying, not me. I wake up the same every day and I'm the same throughout the day. I would encourage you to take an anonymous poll of the people you are living with and are around every day and see if that is accurate, because I think we all have some variations of change throughout the day in terms of our mood. Is there some days you just wake up and somebody's going to get it right, you still know who it is because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed? But thanks be to God that he doesn't change. He never changes. There's no shifting. He is solid all the time. You might say a rock. No mood swings. You never have to wonder what kind of mood God is in today. No unpredictability, no variation from day to day. He is steady when everything else is unstable. He is fixed when everything else is moving. He is faithful every single time with not the slightest hint of inconsistency. And that gives us stability. In Hebrews 13:8, it says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The weakness of the old covenant was these priests. They were human. They would die. Hebrews 7:23 and 24 says this: the former priests were in many a number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. It wasn't the weakness. It is a weakness of the Old Testament. I want to make sure I get that out there. Their effectiveness was varied because they were flawed men. The sons of Eli that we are familiar with and their problems. The priests in Malachi we talked about. Offering sacrifices for their own sins and as well as other sins because they were flawed men. I thought about this too, and this is off-road, so just bear with me here. You may have a different opinion about this. I couldn't really find any information on it, but we talked about the change at the beginning of the lesson. how we aren't good with it. I wonder what it's like when there was a change in a priest back then. You know what I mean? Like you imagine getting used to one priest and suddenly he's gone for whatever reason. Now somebody else is standing there. You get comfortable with this priest and his presence, and good or bad. You know, you knew his variations, his baselines, no matter how flawed they were. You know, what kind of things came with that change. Or perhaps they were dreading the change in priest because the son of the current priest was not as God-fearing as the father, you know, a la some of the old kings of Judah and their sons. So just the nuances that it took place. There's some people that may know that. I would be interested to hear that. But a single priest's presence was affected by change. And that's the stability we have in Jesus, right? He doesn't die. He doesn't get replaced. His priesthood is stable because he himself is unchanging, the same yesterday, today, and forever. We're not much different than the old priest, right? Our presence can change. I'm not the same yesterday as I am today, and certainly not forever. My presence is sometimes affected by other circumstances in life, sometimes emotions. My presence with him may be inconsistent, but thanks be to God, he doesn't change. Because while my presence may be inconsistent, his presence toward me never is. We aren't approaching a different Christ than we did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, a year ago. We're approaching the same Christ every day, the same grace, the same mercy, the same love, and the same character. Because his character doesn't change. Malachi 3:6. For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O God, O children of Jacob, are not consumed. From studying the book of Malachi, I think we're 100 plus years past a Babylonian captivity. I think that's right. I know Robbie's had some classes. He's not here, but some of you have been in there may know this. So I hope that's right. And this verse is probably one that we'll go to when we talk to people about how God is unchanging. God goes in on the context of the verse talking about how they were not keeping the statutes from time to time of their fathers till now. How they were robbing God. And it appears that their time in exile didn't change them. And, you know, sometimes we look down on them and be like, why are you not changing? But, you know, we could be just as guilty of things like that ourselves. They were just as unfaithful as their ancestors, to God as their ancestors, as they were. And the book goes on describing what ways that occurred. And while Malachi 3:6 is a great place to show how God is unchanging, I want you to turn to chapter 1 and look at verse 1. It says, I have loved you. So we were post-warning in the wilderness, post-judges, post-united, divided kingdom, post-captivity, and everything that went on during those times. And God says, I have loved you. I still love you. And the response is, how have you loved us? And he explains how Jacob, their ancestor, he loved and made a commitment to, but Esau, he hated and turned his land to a wasteland, further proving that his character never changed and he still extends mercy. Because he states in Malachi 3:6, I don't change so you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed and consumed. And if we're being honest, they probably deserved to be consumed, much like we do. What can affect our character to the point where we withhold mercy? We're no different when it comes to the subject of change. Our character can change. There's so many factors that can create that change where it can inhibit our ability to extend mercy. Many factors that can go into play there. But thanks be to God that he doesn't change, because we may believe that our sins are so large that how can God forgive me? There's probably people that feel that way. I'm sure I felt that way. And I always relate lessons back to song lyrics that I'm familiar with. And if it's out of place and annoying, I apologize, but that's kind of how my brain is kind of wired to make connections to things I'm familiar with. There's a song, a country song, about a man who is in prison, feeding right into the stereotype. But he's on the phone with his mother, and he asks this question. does Jesus really forgive all of my sins? Can you imagine being so low that you think you're beyond forgiveness? There are clearly people who feel that way. If you're here and you're feeling that way, He, not me, He, through His Scripture, can assure you you are not so far gone that you cannot be forgiven. He was extending mercy to the people of Israel for a long time. He will extend it to you because, thanks be to God, He doesn't change. And I'll leave you with this. So the phrase in this line of the song we talked about at the beginning of this, the only thing that stays the same is everything changes. That's not 100% true, is it? While it's true here, on this earth, for our members here, I think Jessica and I have been here for almost 20 years. How different does this place look for those of you who have been here or longer than it did 20 years ago? 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago. Lord willing, this room will likely look a lot different in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, or even next week, right? It's going to look different next week. The faces will change, the circumstances will change, the season of life will change. There's a place in Searcy, Arkansas, it's going to look different, right? But here's what we should take comfort in every single one of us. Whether you're in Searcy, Arkansas, Somerset, Kentucky, or taking a quick stroll around the moon like those people on Artemis did a few weeks back, or last week, or whatever it does. You're never in a place where God is different. Never in a place where God is different. God's presence is there. Not a different version of Him, not a lesser version of Him, not a more patient version one day and a harsher version the next. The same God, every time, every place, there is no variation in Him. He's the same now as He was when time began. The same God who was patient with Israel is patient with you. The same God who extends mercy then extends mercy now. The same God who kept His promises then is the same God who's keeping them today. What this means for us is when everything in your life feels uncertain, when things shift that you didn't ask for, when people change, when circumstances change, even when you change, you don't have to wonder who God is going to be. He's already shown you that. And He will be that every single time, extending grace, extending mercy, because His character is unchanging. Thanks be to God that He doesn't change. I appreciate your time this morning. And we always extend the invitation to Jesus every time we gather together. And maybe for you, something's changed. And I think we've established that God doesn't. So maybe something has changed in your life. Maybe your focus has shifted. Maybe your priorities have changed. Maybe your relationship with Him wasn't what it once was. If you get nothing from this, understand this, all of us. He is not moved. He still desires reconciliation. And you are never too gone, never too far gone for God's grace and God's forgiveness. If we can aid in prayers anyway on your behalf, we'd love to pray with you and for you. Whatever your need, please let us know as we gather and as we sing.